I'm Sarah Lacey.
And I'm Paul Carr.
Welcome to Why Isn't This News? I'm eating cheese and crackers. I'm starving.
I was just complaining before I pressed record, that the vending machine downstairs at NSFW Corp only has regular Pepsi and not normal Pepsi. So I don't know, I assume high fructose corn syrup has the same effects as sugar. I assume by the end of this I'm going to be bouncing around the room. I'm not used to drinking sugary beverages.
Probably.
So that's something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
Also, my teeth will have all rotted by the end. I'll look like a British person. So, anyway, so what's going on?
It's her birthday.
It's Pando's birthday.
It is.
It's congratulations, first of all. Now you are one. It's flown by. I mean, it's a cliche, but
it feels like it's been 10 years.
Well, so the thing is,
like the first year of Eli's birth the first year of Eli's life has flown by. I feel like Pando took a very long time.
So I feel the same about Pando as I do about Eli. Not in every sense. You know, I don't.
It's adorable.
I like to pick up Pando and go, no. In the sense of, it feels like it's flown by, but at the same time, I can't remember a time pre-Pando or Eli. Like, I find it amazing to think that Pando has only existed a year. But if I think, wow, a year has gone by since you pressed that start button, somehow that seems both an eternity ago and not that long ago at the same time. Which is the same with Eli. I can't remember a time before Eli, but it's amazing how Eli's a fully grown kind of human being now, whereas a year ago he was like this. So that's my theory.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sticking to it. How's the cheese?
So good.
Yeah, it looks like you're enjoying it. Now, are you just eating it because I'm starving? Is that what's happening here, or is it?
I have a baby in my stomach who's sucking all of the nutrients out of me, and I'm starving.
I'm getting pregnant again.
I was just I asked the staff today, like this morning, if they had any like special like remembrances of our first year, like, you know.
And did they?
Why they took the job, like the most like Pando moment, their worst sort of day in the trenches.
Pando moment.
And people had some. I was thinking about when we did this, like as a post, I would put some of them into the post, but they're all just like really emotional and like not, like would seem self-congratulatory if like we published them. But Hallie did, of course, 3 comics showing like her feelings. And this one's so great. It makes me want to cry. She says the day I got hired, and she says just got off my shift at the cafe. She also did a chart showing of how much of her life was spent making coffee versus making art before and after. And so it's a comic of her, and she's just got off shift at the cafe, and like there's this boss in an apron polishing a plate, and he says, "Why are you crying?" And she says, "The best thing that's ever happened to me just happened."
Aww.
So sweet.
That's
nice. But it's like, I think if I were to say, like, what's been the most gratifying thing over the last year, it's assembling this team. And it's taking, like, people like Hallie, who are just geniuses, who've added so much value to our site. And, like, she was working in a cafe.
Yes. No, I know the feeling. I have the same,
jobs, but like, part of it is like people like you or me who didn't have other places to work.
Yeah. No, I mean this is kind of exactly how I feel. And I was Lee just got into town to cover the porn convention, amusingly, last night. And over the past few weeks, a lot of the team have cycled through, and a lot of them are sort of sticking around and sticking around in Vegas. And I've just had multiple moments where I've thought, it's amazing, this team that's sort of come together, and the ones who have, and there've been some who started with Not Safe for Work and haven't really stayed the course for one reason or another. But the ones who have stayed, there are 2 things they have in common. One is they're brilliant at what they do, probably the best in the world at what they specifically do, and the second is that they pretty much couldn't work anywhere else, like or couldn't do this.
Your company or my company?
Both, that's what I'm saying. Like, I realised this for Not Safe for Work, it occurred to me that if you take the individual members of our team, there is nowhere else they could do this. They could work in coffee shops, I'd love to see Josh working in a coffee shop, or even Lee for that matter. But they, in theory, they could get other jobs. But in terms of the jobs that they are suited for, they can only really do them in not safe work. And I have a feeling that's the same with Pando. And even the ones who come in from other tech sites or tech news sites, they very quickly become Pando people.
Right.
So I think that might be one of those things we have in common, albeit in a different way.
You have more. I think you definitely have more of that. I think in general, our writers are like, they could, at this point, they've done such amazing work, particularly over the last couple of months. I think they could probably go just about anywhere and demand a job, and hopefully they won't.
That's probably true, but it would be
there's an element of discovery, certainly, to some extent.
I think they would be frustrated, I think, is my point. Is the point being, it's like lots of people could get other jobs. It's a question of, there is something about Pando that is, if you are a tech journalist, there is something about Pando that is the place to work. Like, you would be, I mean, I can't think of anywhere else where you would have the same level of sort of satisfaction, but also the same level of credibility and the sort of ethical stuff and everything else, plus rewards. I mean, you pay people well and everything else, and hopefully not safe work is the same as that. Certainly,
but for certain kind of people, for sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of journalists that would feel like this is like their nightmare of a job. I think it's a very acquired taste.
And there are certain journalists who you would never hire because they would never fit in.
There's people I would never hire. There's a small percentage of people in the world I would hire. That is pretty much was the challenge in the last year.
Yeah, I hear that. We're looking for interns. I still can't fucking hire an intern. Vegas is, I tell you what, it's the weirdest thing. I can convince people who are right at the top of their game, who could work anywhere in the world, blah, 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 to come to Vegas and stay here and work. I cannot find a single fucking intern. Like, who...
What happened to the guy you had?
Well, he's in New York. And he has a girlfriend there and some roots there. So, I mean... Yeah, I mean, he's basically the only... I mean, we had to fly him here for the election. Like, we cannot find anyone within 200 miles of Las Vegas who will, in exchange for money, get to do one of the be part of a really interesting journalistic startup. It's bizarre. I don't understand. There are people at journalism school here, and yet they don't want to be paid interns for not safe work. We're obviously doing something very seriously wrong.
They need another intern, too.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to hire for. You don't want someone who's going to create more work than they alleviate.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just getting to the point though where we've got just enough stuff now that we need to do that we're really struggling without at least one intern. So I have a part solution to the problem, but it's not good. If anyone's watching this and wants to be an intern, for the love of God, let me know. We should set up a recruitment agency for good interns. Clearly, it's a hole in the market. Is there an Uber intern? No, we'd get a bunch of libertarians. That'd be awful. I can't imagine anything worse than a libertarian intern. I mean...
I can.
Can you?
There's a lot of things worse than a libertarian intern.
I don't think there are. I don't think there's anything else in the world worse than a libertarian intern. God, it'd be unbearable.
Yeah, libertarians.
Last thing... the idea of an intern going on strike as well. Just withholding his labour. And say, all the interns have disappeared. Oh no. Anyway, so what else is going on? So congratulations, you're 1 year old.
What has surprised you the most about Pando over the last year?
About Pando over the last year? Gosh. I'm surprised at how quickly... I'm surprised at a number of things about how quickly a number of things have happened. I'm surprised how quickly... A year isn't... For all the back and forth on whether a year is a long time or not a long time, a year is not a long time to establish a journalistic brand. Mm-hmm. And obviously, you came from, you had a great deal of that before you came, and there was the sort of TechCrunch springboard right at the beginning and all this other stuff. But the fact that I now hear Pando talked about without the qualifier of what it is, like the fact that people go, oh, we got mentioned on Pando, or sites like Pando, and they don't have to say Sarah Lacey's site, or they don't have to say that's a tech site, is really really. Impressive and surprising, because it's nothing to do with the quality of Pando. It's really hard, especially when it's a relatively mature landscape.
It's pretty crowded market. I mean,
Right.
There's definitely like a hole that I saw in terms of the type of stuff I wanted to do, but there's no shortage of tech news sites for people to read.
Well, and I assumed you would get to the point where, you were being included in a list that included, Read Write Web or whatever that's fucking called now, and just included in that list the sort of top 10. But to be talked about in the sort of top 2 or 3 is a real remarkable achievement. So that's impressive. I think another thing that surprised me about Pando, this surprised me early on, is how quickly Pando Monthly got to maturity. Like, the first one was a clusterfuck, we all agree on that. The second one, though, was basically fully formed. And obviously a lot has evolved and changed and whatever. But you could re-host the second Pando Monthly again, and no one would say, well, they've really let themselves go. It's like how quickly that found its format and found its feet is mind-blowing to me.
I don't know what we did, because it didn't even turn out according to really what my articulation at the time of the vision was.
Yeah.
Like, it was, it even turned out differently than I thought. So it's not like I was just like, totally had this idea and we went and did it. But it's like, I feel like now you look back and think, oh, well, the editorial team came together like fairly painlessly, but like that's very much what you would say in hindsight, because it was incredibly painful over the last year.
No, and that's the thing, is the editorial team, I've seen the evolution, and I've seen the people who have gone and stayed and whatever, but Pando Monthly, just out the box.
Pando Monthly just made the editorial team look like it took, an editorial product look like it took forever to hit its stride, because it did it so quickly. Yeah.
I'm surprised at how many people watch Why Isn't This News? That's something that surprised me. It's double figures now, I think, which is at least 10 more than I thought. So that's something that surprised me. Sorry?
At least 10 more than should.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just eating crackers.
No, I see that. I appreciate it that you're still doing that.
I only have like one more in the package after this. So.
But there's not much. But in terms of surprising, apart from how quickly you've got to a point of sort of maturity and success, or recognition, or whatever the word is, I'm not hugely surprised by much, because when you first sort of articulated it, when we first talked about it, I had no doubt that it was going to be great, and it's turned out great. So for me to be surprised would suggest that And you pretty much laid out what it was going to be, and a lot of it was based on conversations we'd had over the years about stuff that was wrong with other things, or just wrong generally with journalism, or what journalism should be. And so I'm not hugely surprised by the fact it's turned out. I'm if anything just pleased that it's always nice when you have a hypothesis, which. I don't know if you know what a hypothesis is, Sarah, but it's an idea that can be proven through a test.
There's maybe one parent who's watching this show now who wouldn't get this.
It's a reference to a TV show called Dinosaur Train. Now,
I frequently watches while he's having dinner.
And so every time I'm at sort of Sarah's place in Vegas, and Eli is having dinner, this Dinosaur Train show is on. It's not Jim Henson, it's Spielberg, someone like that. It's someone big, right? Pixar. It's something. No, it is. It's like Spielberg or Henson or something. It is. But
I thought it was just I thought it was sort of a He-Man thing where you had some marketing people in a room who were like, "What do little boys like?
No.
Dinosaurs and trains."
Oh no, well that definitely did happen, but. It's PBS. I'm looking it up. It's wait a minute. Discovery Kids and PBS. Wow, it's weird. When you Google, it shows you the cast, like the actual real people behind it. It's kind of confusing. I'm sure it's produced by it's Jim Henson Company.
Oh, at any rate.
So anyway,
the orange dinosaur always has a hypothesis,
and then
this annoying thing. They have this annoying segment at the end of each show, where it's a mashup of Buddy's hypotheses, and it's always the same ones. I have no idea why they do it at the end of every show, but it's awful.
It's so fucking annoying. But it's not just annoying, it's not the only thing annoying about the show. I actually think it's surprisingly, like Yo Gabba Gabba, it's surprisingly easy to be sucked into an episode of Dinosaur Train when it's on. The other thing, though, and I've mentioned this to you before, but the other thing that baffles me about Dinosaur Train is they're dinosaurs on a steam train, powered by coal, which is dead dinosaurs. If you're going to teach kids stuff...
This tidbit.
But no, I mean, because once it occurred to me, the whole show takes a really dark, sinister turn. It's like there's a group of dinosaurs being transported by the ashes and fossils of their dead relatives. It's grotesque. I don't know, maybe just me. Maybe I'm the only one who cares about the macabre undertones of...
Right, buddy, you were saying you had a hypothesis.
I had a hypothesis. I forgot what it is now.
Oh, no, I think, I'm going to talk about an homage to Pando the rest of the 3-hour show. But I think that what surprised me the most is how much of a consistent voice the whole publication has.
Yeah.
Like how I think regular readers know who would write each post without looking at the byline. Like, so every writer really has their own voice, but somehow they meld together.
Yeah.
Even with Nathan's sensibility with like the editing and Hallie's sense of humor with the art and David Holmes' sort of wacky sense of humor with all his stuff. And it's like, that to me is amazing, because that usually takes a very, very long time to like coalesce in that way. And I think the other thing is, look, the only concern sort of I heard voiced from investors, and this is actually the reason that Andreessen specifically said that I should raise more than $1 million, is he was like, I think a year from now, you've gone through $1 million and we have a conversation and you've built an amazing editorial product that no one's reading.
Right.
And he's like, I just think it's going to take longer if you're going to focus on quality to really get to where this is what everyone's reading. And so I think it is surprising that has not been the case.
That people are actually reading it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to help you though that the sort of alternative, the alternatives to Pando have gone to shit so rapidly. I mean, if you ask me what surprised me, one of them would be that, I mean, and I don't just mean TechCrunch, I also mean...
Yeah, every time someone compliments us, I always say, you know...
Like, if this were the Oscars,
it's not hard to look good in tech journalism right now.
If this were the Oscars, you would have to thank VentureBeat for Journalism Fridays, TechCrunch for everything they do, with a side note to thanking Jack Daniels. You'd have to I mean, you know, it's just... They've all at the same... You know, and it's like basically everybody's just stepped aside or drunkenly stumbled into a gutter and allowed Pando to just sort of walk through and just be like, oh, hi, everyone. You know, so I would say it's 99% obviously what you've achieved with Pando.
Some people have also just seeded the market. I mean,
yeah.
You know, All Things D still writes like a lot of really, really great stuff, but they seem to have focused more on big companies than. I mean, there was a while when they first started that Kara wrote a lot about startups, and like you don't see that as much anymore, which makes sense with their conference franchise.
Yeah.
And then there's, you know, Business Insider has like really, you know, doesn't have any pretense of being a tech publication anymore. So it's not everyone doing a bad job. It's just, I think people have specialized in other places.
Yeah. Business Insider has specialized in other places, certainly. You will not believe what they have specialized in, what they just specialized in.
I have some other industry gossip to tell you. I forgot, but I can't say on camera.
Well, that's a real dickish thing for the viewers, isn't it?
Sorry.
And I love the way you said there's some other, which also flags that there was some previous to this industry gossip. So basically what you're watching is the intake of breath between two pieces of industry gossip, during which time we'll talk about how great Pando is. What a great fucking value add for the viewer.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
What else do you want to talk about?
Well, so I had a number of things I wanted to talk about. One of them, I wanted to briefly mention, just in passing, the Atlantic with its Scientology thing, because you announced you're going to do sponsored content, and the phrase sponsored content, you're sort of doing that thing of reclaiming the word.
Taking back the night.
Yeah, exactly. Because sponsored content has become such a horrible thing that for you to even use the phrase sponsored content was a brave move.
It has.
It has. I mean, it has, because of
in some senses, but not all. I think it's still very much being experimented with.
No. The concept, yes. The phrase sponsored content has become the Atlantic giving a fucking hand job to Scientology, or it's become, and I know you and I disagree on this, but it's become BuzzFeed presented by Starbucks, and it's basically become having words on your site under your banner that are not written by your editorial team. And in print, these were always called advertorials. This has existed since the beginning of time. But there was something in print when having the advertorial flag at the top. There's something like the grammar of print where it stands out, and often the layout looks different and everything else. The problem I have with sponsored content written by non-editorial staffers is the fact that you can put the little fucking Starbucks logo in the corner or the picture of L. Ron Hubbard or whatever it is, but people don't register it. In the way that they ignore banners, if you go to The Atlantic and you're at atlantic.com/Scientology handjob, whatever the URL was, then you assume that your brain just says this is on The Atlantic, and we know people don't read in detail articles, they skim. And so my big problem with sponsored content is how often it masquerades as actual content. And I guess on BuzzFeed it doesn't matter, because do I care if Starbucks is telling me 10 things they miss about the 90s or Jonah Peretti is telling me? No, I don't really care. But the principle stands, and when you're someone like The Atlantic, it's really egregious. And for them to say, what I did find annoying was they said, oh, we've withdrawn this, now there's been this outcry, we've withdrawn the piece because we have to draw a line before Scientology. And that made me really uncomfortable, because it's like, now you're basically saying you're going to just make a judgment call.
I mean, that's where you get into trouble on that.
Because now you're editorializing adverts. The whole point is there's supposed to be a divide. Either you can have as a company a principle that says we don't take religious advertising.
Yeah.
But they don't have that principle, and they certainly didn't when they took the ad. If you're then saying, well, let's wait to see if the internet yells at us, and if they do, we'll take it down. At that point, advertising has become an editorial decision, which means that when you put up another ad for, say, smoking, if you don't take it down, then the editorial is inherently implicitly endorsing that.
You paint yourself into that corner. When you're doing that.
Advertising, you have to just basically say, on an editorial point of view, we don't, unless we have an established principle of not taking a certain type of ads, we don't even look at it. If the internet goes mental about an ad, talk to the ad department.
Right.
So that was weird. Anyway, but what you're doing with sponsored content is very different, which is why I remarked on the fact you use the same phrase, because what you're doing is you're saying, here's our editorial calendar. In the next few months, we're going to be doing these sort of special sections where we'll do, mobile payments, maybe one, or travel as one, or whatever else. Things that I mean, you're not, not to be disingenuous, things that obviously an advertiser might be interested in. Something like travel is obviously there are going to be companies that would advertise. But the point is, you're saying at the forefront, we are commissioning this, we are going to have pieces in this that we will commission and do.
We didn't even actually talk about whether or not people would buy it. Because I just think I think there's such an alignment with the stuff that we write is so valuable for people in the industry. That I just trust that sort of anything we think would be really interesting to dig into is sort of timely enough and big enough that someone has a value in buying ads. We generally didn't talk about it. And in fact, the one that was sold on the art of starting up, I wouldn't have thought that was sellable. I would have thought that was the least sellable of all of them,
I mean, you can, I would not be surprised, and you would be forgiven if at some point in the future, when you're commissioning these special features, you do at least have half a mind, or if you don't,
and by the way, I'm not saying that in the future, if let's say, I'm trying to think of a huge brand.
Amex. It's always Amex. Everyone says Amex for these things.
Yeah, okay. Let's say Amex came to us and they said, we'd really love to sponsor something around luxury lifestyles, what people did when they cashed out. There's a lot of ways we can make that really, really interesting. And if they said something we want to do this around, credit card processing companies, we wouldn't do that because it's not interesting. But I'm not saying we won't even in the future like take cues from someone, but then say, okay, well, we agree loosely. This is what this is going to be.
Yep.
Now we're going to go put together like 6 amazing stories.
Yeah.
And you can pay for it or not, but we're going to write it anyway.
Right.
And
well, yeah. I mean, the point being that it's.
I think where we might fail, and this is one of like a lot of things that we're trying this year. I think where we might fail is that it's not probably sponsored content enough. You know what I mean? Like
they're not getting enough input into the editorial, that therefore they don't want to pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, Braintree's paid a lot of money to sponsor this, which like, God bless them. Like we stay in business another couple days or whatever. But it's but we're not going to ever. I don't think we're mentioning Braintree, and we might be, we might not be. I don't know.
Did they pay using Braintree? Because if so, you can just build them now again and again for whatever the fuck you want.
We use Stripe when we do pay. Like we don't even.
That's amazing. Braintree paid for their ad using Stripe. That's excellent.
Yeah, I think that we have a merchant payment account that we do for like grown-up stuff, but for the Pando monthlies we use Stripe, which like hopefully they don't.
I love Stripe.
Realize that might piss them off.
Well, I don't have any sponsor content, so I love Stripe. Stripe. Use Stripe. Fuck Braintree. That's what I say. Put this in the Braintree sponsored bit of the site. Dare ya.
But it's great because, the thing that's awesome about an editorial calendar is it really gives you the freedom to think about things you don't cover a lot. And I have to say, like, there was someone I was meeting with today who was like a great story but didn't have an obvious news hook. But it's like a really crazy story about like how a company started in a way you never would. And I was like, this is perfect for this. And like once you have this, you start like, it allows you to tell stories you couldn't normally really do somehow in a blog and like link them together in a way that's really good. So it's like, I think even if the bulk of these don't get advertisers, like it'll be great content for our audience. And, it's like, if people have an issue with that kind of sponsored content, they basically have an issue with advertising because that's how.
I mean,
paper and magazine, and certainly Trade Pub has like emphasis sections they sell in advance, and people want to advertise in that section.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a surprise that like in the movie section of a daily paper, there's ads for like all of the cinemas and what's planned. I mean, it's like this is sort of the basics of how papers and magazines work.
I think you have two challenges with it, though. I think, and both of them are kind of invisible challenges, which is, you have, in which case you actually have three challenges. The biggest challenge you have is a perception challenge, because the minute you say we're doing sponsored content,
I think we do. I don't care.
No, I think, no, well, that's the thing about, you can't really disagree on a perception challenge, because that's the point, there will always be the dick who wants to say, oh, you're doing a sponsored section.
No, but there's always the dick who's going to say anything about anything.
Right, so no, let me finish. There's a
problem.
But the point being, that side of things, that's the sort of visible side, which isn't actually interesting because it's just there's always going to be dicks. What's interesting, one of the challenges that I would foresee is the fact that because you are a small team, I wonder if people are going to have to trust that it's not, because you have a small team, and because of the fact that it's, what am I trying to say? It's the same as the investor thing, which is you have very clear ethical guidelines internally in the company, and it's anyone who knows you and who knows Pando and who's ever seen inside Pando will know that it's hilarious when somebody says, "Oh, you've got money from such and such an investor, therefore you're not going to write a nasty story," because you can point to 50 companies that you've written about directly against the investor, but you're sort of proving a negative, because they could always say, "Oh, but would you have written something harder about them if they weren't a sponsor?"
Right.
And then
to be fair, we probably would have been harder on Uber.
So I was going to say, we'd have really given Uber what for.
Not sure if that's possible.
But there's also the flip side to it. There's the other bit of that, which is because it's a small team, it is almost a valid question to an outsider of, if there's 10 people at Pando contributing and Braintree as a sponsor, is there enough distance when you're the CEO and editor-in-chief? Is there enough distance to ensure that if you get a negative story about Braintree, you're not going to just think, well, that decision whether you run it or not run it. Now, before you answer, my answer to it is anyone who's seen inside Pando knows how Pando works.
Yeah, I mean, to me,
immediately
this is
would not.
I mean, this is obviously something the industry's going through
Yeah.
overall right now. I mean, there's the CNET thing this week. I mean,
Exactly.
I think it doesn't matter how you're how you're taking money. It doesn't matter, what your corporate structure is.
Yeah.
If you're owned by someone else, if you're independent, if you're VC. I mean, it's like all of these things just go back to the ethics of the team.
This is my point. Yeah.
Changes and to me, like anything anyone's gonna say about ads, it's like if someone was already a sponsor for an event or big advertisers, you could say, I don't see how the way we're doing advertising changes that at all.
Right.
So I think the investor thing was like a much harder thing for us to overcome in terms of even though every other blog has taken venture capital money and we disclose it more than anyone else, but that was something where it's I can understand how someone who doesn't really understand how the Valley works, or the fact that these guys are in, they've invested across dozens or hundreds of companies depending on the investor, and they all conflict with one another, and there would actually be no feasible way we could keep all of them happy. If you understand the Valley and you also understand how companies work and how little minority shareholders are even involved in a company's operations when they're just a seed investor, if you understand all those things, it's it was kind of always obvious that it wasn't going to be a problem. But I can understand how someone who doesn't was very concerned, and I think that's up to us to prove it. And if we do, great. If we don't read us, fine. I don't think that we have that.
So I think you suffer. I know, and my final point on it is I think a lot of what you suffer from in terms of and when I say you, I mean ethical media organizations who sort of touch the internet in any way. Is a lot of us suffer from the lack of ethics and transparency of other media organizations. A good example is, so the CNET thing. There's no doubt that was ethically egregious, and you wrote a great post on it the other day basically saying, the editor was like, oh, I was put in an impossible position, I didn't know what to do. It's no, you weren't. You weren't put in an impossible position at all. But the fact is, that would have carried. The only reason that came out is because basically there was a sort of whistleblower, what I found breathtaking about the coverage of that story is the fact that so many of the other journalists who weighed in on it and were like, "Ooh, CNET." They work for organizations who do the exact same thing, sometimes even worse things. The lack of ethics in particularly online media is so fucking egregious and so hypocritical and the only reason it doesn't come out is because no one gives a fuck. When the New York Times does it, somebody will whistleblow because it's a big story. When somebody at insert name of popular tech blog here does it, no one gives a fuck because no one gives a fuck. And part of me is well, obviously it's good that the CNET story came out and they should be shamed, but I almost felt bad for them because if I was at CNET, I'd be like, why did we get the? Why did we choose the short straw in getting found out? Because especially awards.
I'll tell you why. Because CNET, like it or not, was bought for just a couple $100 less than YouTube was bought for by CBS Media, which is one of the most avuncular, well-heeled media organizations in our country. So it means and here's the thing, yes, I did hang that editor out to dry because she was the one stupid.
Well, you were right to.
That post. But
it's like movie phone all over again.
A lot of people who should have told Les Moonves to fuck off way before it should have never gotten to her being in that position. And I think one of the things that's so shocking right now with all of these stories that keep coming out is that, we can all, you and I can talk about how egregious this is for editorial, but one thing that's shocking is and I wrote about this today with the Tim Armstrong post, this doesn't even make business sense anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, CBS sent a message that said either CBS has gone back on Edward R. Murrow and the entire legacy of our organization, or we just don't deem CNET a media property.
That's what it was. No, it was not just that, but it was
when he said TechCrunch isn't held to the same standards of journalism. It's
no, well, so I think it's a combination of
selling these guys down a river.
I think it's a combination of things. I don't think it's necessarily they don't see it as a media property. They certainly don't see it as a first-tier media property. That's for damn sure. More importantly, though, this is what happens when the people editing media properties and tech media properties are 12-year-olds, are basically, from a corporate point of view, are 12-year-olds. And what you end up with is this sense at the corporate level of their managers, like the guy who runs a Pizza Hut is a manager. They're basically, well, we make sure someone's there to unlock the doors in the morning and lock them up, but any big decisions get made at a corporate level. And so when a lawyer at CBS or a salesperson at AOL or whatever it is decides that they need the kids to do something, a memo goes out. Oh, we're having a fight with this company. You need to not do that. And the 12-year-old manager, in fear of their job, because their minimum wage job, that they don't know if they'll get anywhere else, and they get a business.
High-paid job.
Well, okay, but they get they get a business card that says they're the editor of a thing, and they get to go to parties with fucking Kesha or whatever. They do what they're fucking told, because if they don't do what they're fucking told, then there's a million other children who will do that job just as ineffectually. So the problem is from a corporate level, the problem is not that I don't think somebody was sitting at CBS headquarters saying, we're going to have to break every rule in the journalistic book here and do this. I think some junior fucking counsel saw on CNET this and just sent out a memo, and because
I think the report was it came from Les Moonves
directly.
That was I saw this in the Pando ticker.
You think he reads CNET?
No idea who it was sourced to, but what I read early on was that he said, for our product to survive, they cannot do well in the market. We cannot be holding them up.
If it was in the Pando ticker, but I can't.
Look, the Pando ticker is a news aggregation property. Sometimes it may have been a rumor that wasn't substantiated. Here, I'll look it up.
I would really, really find it hard to. Well, first of all, I'd find it hard to believe that he sits and reads CNET. If some, like I say, junior counsel sends a note saying what's our position on this, and
so this was it was reported by the Hollywood Reporter, which I'm sure came from someone else.
I was just saying they've nailed it. They're always good on tech news,
right? But it says I don't know. They have a source saying it.
I don't buy it, and the thing, the other thing I don't buy. I mean, the flip side to it as well is the fact that if somebody ranking higher than a 12-year-old Pizza Hut manager in an editorial property was to get that message, they would tell. This is what you said in your post. You tell them to fuck off. If you're a fucking editor of a publication, you just tell them to fuck off. And the fact that this person felt they couldn't, I mean, it's mind blowing to me. And unfortunately, it's the same across so many tech sites now. Of the people in charge are not really in charge. They're just junior level managers with a job title who do what they're fucking told.
I don't know the editor of CNET. I just know she was wrong.
Well, you know the character of the editor of CNET. It was somebody who felt they couldn't stand up for their. So we talked about this on the phone the other day, and you don't get to say, if you're the editor of a publication, you don't get to say there was nothing I could do.
This was what Josh Topolsky wrote on The Verge.
Okay.
Apparently, the move to strike the Hopper from the awards was passed on directly to Larkin from the office of CBS CEO Les Moonves.
From the office of.
has one of the most outspoken opponents of the Hopper, telling investors at one point, "Hopper cannot exist. If Hopper exists, we will not be in business."
Okay, from the office of. Not
a low-level person is all I'm saying.
My reading of that is that somebody in his office, which by the way is probably about 500 people.
No, I bet it's not.
Knowing his position on the subject, handed down the edict. The idea that he was on the phone.
That's a low-level accountant. This is it. I mean,
I said counsel. I said counsel.
Whatever.
It doesn't matter. The point being, we're speculating, so it actually doesn't matter. The point being, I don't give a shit if it's fucking God Almighty himself. Yeah. If you're the editor, and this was the thing that made me the most angry about it, and we've gone off, my original point on this was you can't really blame people. You can say people don't get the media industry, but you actually at some point can't really blame people for being cynical when all this fucking shit goes on. But back to the CNET thing. Here's the thing for people who are... This is the problem with giving children editor on their business card. It's like giving children and not... The connection is... This is not the best analogy, because one of these jobs actually requires an education. But it's like putting brain surgeon on your business card. It looks really cool until you have to do some fucking brain surgery, at which point it really falls apart if you don't know what you're doing. And there's all these people with editor or senior editor or editor-in-chief on their business card who are really good at it when they don't have to do fuck all apart from sitting at a party. But the minute one of the bigger kids comes along and starts pushing them around, they run for the fucking hills. And the thing is, you don't get to say, I was put in an impossible position, when the position you were put in was the position of having to do your fucking job.
Yeah.
It's like a Marine.
That's what an editor does.
It's like a Marine who's done all the training and done all the running about, gets the uniform and the girls and all that shit, and then is sent to Afghanistan and is suddenly sees an enemy coming towards him and runs for the hills going, I was put in an impossible position. It's like, no, you weren't. You were put in the position that you were trained for.
Yeah.
You're a fucking coward. And
I think what bothered me about it was, like, I mean, again, we can go on and on about all, like, the reasons, you know, the lofty reasons that people should do the right thing. But, like, I don't count on
well, we have some credibility here, given that we both quit AOL over...
I understand that. But I think, let's boil this down to, like, even more essentials. The selfish thing to do.
Right.
The self-interested career move in that situation.
Is make a huge fucking scene.
What Greg Sandoval did. And
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know him at all, but, like, is CNET the destination everyone wants to be at right now? I bet there's a lot of people who would like to leave CNET and have an opportunity to like burnish their credentials and look really, really badass. And like, so it's like, even from a totally selfish point of view, it was the smart thing to do.
Yeah,
and like, by the way, what pissed me off the most in her blog was that she defended not quitting and defended doing it.
Oh, her team.
By her team, which is total fucking bullshit. Because she has made that whole team look bad because she didn't stand up. And I guarantee you, if she had said, no fucking way, and I'm going to publicize this if you try to make me do it, and I'm going to quit and make a huge fucking stink about it, her team would have applauded her and loved her for it. That is standing up for your team. When your team says, we've decided this is the best in show, standing up for your team is not allowing someone to bully them out of that.
And how was her team going to suffer?
Say you like your paycheck. Say, you know, you have a mortgage and you have kids. Say whatever you want to say. But don't say you're doing it for your team, because you sold your team down a river when you allowed someone from the office of Les Moonves to tell you what editorial they had already written that they could publish or not.
I don't even understand the premise of what was going to happen to her team. It's like in The Office. I don't know if it happened in the American version of The Office too, but in the British version of The Office, there's a great scene where Ricky Gervais is getting fired, and he basically starts saying like, "It's not me, it's these guys. They're going to be so upset." And he's like, he does this whole shtick about how like the whole team, and of course they don't give a fuck. And it's that thing of like, the only way she can even peg this to, I was thinking about my team, is like, how will they survive without an editor like me? It's like, given you don't do fucking anything connected with your actual job, I'm sure they'll survive just fine with whichever Pizza Hut manager they put in next.
Probably a little harsh.
No, don't think so. No, do not think so. It's, again, say that you're just doing it for the paycheck. Yeah. Say that you've been unfathomably promoted to 27 levels above your capability, and this is the best gig of your life, and you're just holding on for dear life until someone realizes you're a fucking fraud and sends you back down to the gutter where you belong. But don't say you're doing it for your team or for principle. You're just a fucking coward.
And don't say it was an impossible situation.
Because it wasn't. It was the impossible situation was your job.
Well, but beyond that, I mean, like, even beyond the job, it was a gift to you on a silver platter to make a name for yourself as a real journalist. To actually prove what everyone says they would do. It's like, it was a gift.
Yeah, you're not even good at being an idiot. All right, so fuck. Does she still have a job? I forgot. She's still there.
Yeah.
And yet, at least one of her team has resigned. Yeah.
I thought he was on her team.
It's cool. This is like, it's like when Tim Armstrong said, "Oh, we hold TechCrunch to different ethical standards." It's like, thanks, Tim. Great.
Guess what? That I'm not part of TechCrunch.
No. Anyway, so that's fun. That was a good one. Good to talk about. It's nice to have It's nice when we talk about media ethics without it being TechCrunch. You know? Because the trouble with TechCrunch breaking every single ethical rule in the book is people tend to think that we just have some bone to pick with TechCrunch. It's like, no, they just are the go-to example for everything bad. In-office drunkenness, TechCrunch. Fraudulent award ceremonies, they dodged a fucking bullet. Jesus Christ. I mean, really? I enjoyed the post. I won't embarrass the author.
I didn't even think about that.
I enjoyed the post by the author who I won't mention because I don't want to publicly embarrass John Biggs. But the post saying, oh, what will CBS do now? Like, what will CNET do now after this terror? And it was always, oh dear, CNET, you a fraudulent awards ceremony. It's like, will you be at the Crunchies? Will you be giving Mike Harrington the award for Best Angel? Will you? I mean, I was there when those awards were decided, and it was like, oh, I don't like that guy.
Let's give it to.
I mean,
to be fair though, like I do want to actually stand up for Legacy TechCrunch because I think TechCrunch always was really
TechCrunch classic, as I
like,
now
old
call it.
TechCrunch was very transparent with readers, and like we always made clear there was editorial judgment that went into the Crunchies.
Yeah, I think we may have. I think if people had seen the level towards it, it's like we always made clear that the sausages are made from mechanically recovered meat. It's like that's still kind of a euphemistic phrase, isn't it, for basically assholes and fucking tongues. So yeah, looking forward to the Crunchies. I hope Mike wins. I'm really, really pleased that he's achieved a nomination for Best Angel from a company that he founded and has just recently received a large amount of money to rejoin. I don't know. I assume. I mean, the Academy must have had their reasons for voting him to that. I mean, fuck. But yeah, CNET. Looking forward to Disrupt as well. Maybe he'll win the fucking best startup in that as well. Church Key Beer, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, moving on. Who isn't awful?
Talk about TechCrunch's ethics.
No, there's a little switch that goes. Anyway, so that's good. What?
It's just like you're talking about your old boyfriend.
I'm not even getting into that. It's just a word of advice. If you're going to use a hypothetical analogy, don't be guilty of the actual thing.
I know, that'd be like if I was like, God, this is just like people who do rambling hour-long podcasts about their companies that no one watches.
Yeah, hypothetical analogy, actual thing. Yeah. It's like Catherine the Great calling someone a horse fucker is what it is. It's just like, wow, you really screwed the horse on that one. It's like, Catherine, different analogy, because that's actually what you do. In the comments now, at least 5 people are jumping in to say that she actually didn't fuck horses.
Including Elon.
Anyway, so that's good. So ethics is tied up.
I have like less than an hour.
I have to too.
Before he goes to bed.
Today, there are 3 not safe for work writers in the field in Vegas. Mm-hmm. One is in a church. One is at the state's largest gun show, and the other is at the AVN porn convention. I feel like we've pretty much got America covered. Porn, guns, religion, done. Like out the door. So I've got to bring all of that team together and do a Not Safe for Work live in a bit, and then I think we're going to go to the Remotive dinner. I'm going to show up with.
Doesn't sound like a you thing to do.
So I got the email about it. So this is, for those watching, this is a dinner that every Wednesday Remotive, which is one of the other companies currently in our building, do where they invite the entire community to have dinner. It's very nice. I don't tend to go to them because I don't like people. I mean, that's the long and short of it. I just don't like other human beings. This technological interaction here is the closest I like to get to human beings. But I have felt a bit bad recently that I only ever went to one, and that was because I was someone else's guest. And I kind of feel like I should, for the community, like introduce now that my whole fucking team is in Vegas, I feel like I should introduce them to the community. So I got the email about it, and I think, but it's I'm going to take Mark and Lee and John Dolan and anyone else who's around to the dinner. It might be a bit overwhelming for them though, the robot kids.
Yeah,
I feel like we'll just come in like locusts, eat all the food, and then just leave.
But hey, we've got our last charity water dinner this week.
Thursday. Can't wait. Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, David Bill, my friend David Bill, who's been to all of the Pando Monthlies, and was one of the people who bought the $1,000 ticket, which makes me feel less bad for letting him into a couple of the Pando Monthlies when I don't think he actually had a ticket, so it's kind of good.
that he paid $1,000. But he's in town in Vegas. I keep seeing him walking around, and he's, I know, looking forward to the dinner. They've been good. I've enjoyed them.
I've loved them. I thought there was every chance it was going to be people with expense accounts who were annoying.
No, and they're all not.
No one has been annoying at any of them. It's been fabulous.
Yeah, if anything, we have been the annoying ones.
Probably.
I mean, insisting that we go around the table and introduce everyone. That's annoying.
I remember I was really sick at one of them. Like, I had to go lay in the bathroom.
Oh, Christ. Yeah, I remember. You are pregnant, in fairness.
Very pregnant.
All right. Well, and then we're going to New York next week for...
Chad Dickerson.
Chad Dickerson. I should say Etsy, right? Yeah.
So, yeah, Chad is actually, I was thinking about it, I think Chad is the first founder we've ever had, or no, I'm sorry, that's my point. He's not a founder. He's the first CEO we've had who wasn't a founder.
Tony.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Well, although he was there in capacity of the Downtown Project, which he was the founder of.
Yeah, and he also...
The thing he's currently doing, he is the founder of.
Zappos, so he was there at the very beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I actually saw...
Costello will be the same boat when we have him in June, but it's interesting. I think Etsy and Twitter are both fascinating because they're both companies that are essentially cockroaches that should have died because everything you could say of like what should not work and have killed a company would have. But it's like their products and communities are just so strong. So Chad does not do a lot of stuff, and I've only met him once, and it was like I really, really enjoyed the conversation, and it took a lot of arm twisting to get him to do it, but I'm really excited about this one.
Can I pitch an idea for Pando TV? It's just a title right now, but I think you're going to like it. It's a series called In the Same Boat with Dick Costolo. And it's, you know the movie Lifeboat?
Yeah.
So it's Dick Costolo. Every week it's Dick Costolo in a boat with another CEO, because he's very, like, because of the comedy thing and because he's good. He's good on stage. Him and Chad Dickerson in the same boat. And every week there would be, I'm sort of fleshing this out as I say it, but every week there would be something in the boat that would be connected to the other person. So the thinking with Chad is it would be a pile of like craft supplies. And the two of them would, over the course of the hour, would make some cushions or something with birds on it or some sort of earrings and that they would then sell on Etsy afterwards. What do you think? In the same boat with Dick Costolo.
I kind of like the idea, but I think it should just be people who... These Net Mogul business cards are amazing.
Oh, yeah. I found on suck.com. I went back to suck.com, which I haven't been on for probably 20 years like everyone else. And they did, Net Mogul, like, trading cards. I sent you Andrew Anker, Mark Andreessen, John Doe. Who else did I send you? Jim Clark. There's a load of other ones. Half of them I don't recognize.
I mean, no offense to our executive chairman, but this has got to be the one time he's been in the ranking with Mark Andreessen.
Esther Dyson's in there as well. There were a couple of others I didn't send you where it's like, did they used to be a bigger deal than I remember? Or did Wired just buy suck.com?
I'm just going to send this to
Andrew Anker...
right now.
Andrew Anker makes more sense when you realise that he was at Wired when they owned suck.com.
Right.
I also like Mark's hair.
Yeah.
I think that's a good. We should do that.
The young Mark Andreessen with hair.
I'm sure. Didn't we talk about doing those again? I guess Hornick does them for the lobby, the trading card thing, but it would be quite fun to do those again.
Oh, he does a different thing every year. You know what I think would be fun to do is
in the same boat with Dick Costolo.
No. Oh no! What I was gonna say, I think they should just be fishing.
Oh.
And talking about so metaphorically in their same boat because it's someone that he has something in common with, business wise. Maybe you do a company that is also pissed off all of its developers.
Yes.
Like there's something that he has in common with everybody, so they're in the same boat, and then they're just in the same boat fishing.
That's it. I love it.
Craft supplies.
Well, these ideas get iterated. This is how creativity happens. Talk to Kim. Let's make it happen. We'll get an Emmy.
I guarantee you, Dick Costolo does not have time to do that.
He doesn't have time to go fishing.
No.
I think
look how busy we are running our
work-life
balance, Sarah. Work-life balance. There's no rule, by the way, in the same boat with Dick Costello that says he can't be on his BlackBerry or whatever doing work while he goes.
He probably will be on his BlackBerry.
I'm just saying, like, no one's saying you have to stop work. He can be in the same boat when Chad is talking or fashioning his craft supplies or casting his rod or whatever we decide. He can just, he can catch up. Or maybe he's in the same boat with someone who works at Twitter. So then he can have a meeting.
Do you have the thread of the week?
Oh, yeah. I've had a really good week this week, actually. In terms of the team all being here, plans for various sort of new projects are really continuing apace. I actually have an unregret. I know this isn't the rule, but you've criticized me so often for
A lot of it.
for when I
can't imagine which realm of your life it's going to be about.
You've criticized me so often. New sentence. You've criticized me so often for when somebody on my team is not working out. Taking it that old rule of when you know it's time to fire somebody, you're already too late. And I have been quite bad at, and if not firing, then changing people's jobs and sort of just generally fixing a problem when somebody's not working out. And yet this week, and it's not one of our writers, which is why I feel comfortable talking about this. It was a contractor, but somebody who I took a chance on.
Stop paying someone who's awful.
No, it's somebody. No, but actually somebody who I took a chance on, and I said to them, "We'll see if this works out." Now, normally that would have bought them at least a month of being awful before I had the heart to get rid of them. And within a matter of a few days, no, less than a week, it had become clear. I'd given them like one chance to be better. It became clear they didn't fit in, and I sent them on their way. But not in a kind of passive aggressive, I'm not going to pay you way. Just in a literally, it's not working out. You don't get this job.
You actually fired.
I actually actively fired someone, and then I also channeled my inner Sarah Lacey because normally. Yeah, when I'm done with somebody, I'm just done with them. And so normally having got rid of this person, and I would have any sort of after we'd all agreed that was the end of it, any sort of comeback I would have just ignored them. Like I had no interest in talking to them anymore. However, he kind of came back with this sort of slightly self-justifying, like, well, it wasn't entirely my fault because email, and I sat over the keyboard and thought, he's wrong, and he's annoyingly wrong, and he just does not get this company.
Mm-hmm.
I could either just ignore this because he's already gone, he's not working for us anymore, it's done, or I could send a Sarah Lacey reply. And
I'm sure to think what that was.
well, it was just
I would say usually when I say like I'm channeling my inner Michael Arrington, it's like my pep talk for why I can go be a total dick in my own self-interest. Is that what the inner
no, not really even in my own, no, not in my own self-interest, in defense of my company.
Mm-hmm.
Because the person so clearly didn't get what we do for Not Safe for Work, and everybody else on this team is so unbelievably sold on the vision, and to the point where it's not even really my vision anymore, it's a collective thing, that when somebody comes in and sort of whines about the fact that they don't fit in because, well, I'm just not used to working like this, and maybe if you guys change the fundamental basics of how your company works, I would have been able to do my job better. I'm not good at just walking away from that without going, this is what I'm talking about. You do not understand what we do here. And I've now reached the point where I'm confident enough in what we do here and proud enough of what we do here that, no, we are right and you are wrong. And I feel like I've seen you do that with Pando, where... And I get the sense that in a similar situation you would have done the same thing of just, no, fuck you, actually. Let me tell you a bit about why. And the funny thing is, my first correspondence with him over it, I was trying to be so polite. I was doing the whole, it just isn't a good fit. I just don't think you understood it, but I was being nice.
Did you fire him by email?
No.
Okay.
Partly. But, no. Partly. It was a process. But I needed to put it in writing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was it. So my regret of previous weeks is that I was really bad at doing that, and I think it was a number of factors of, especially like with writers, I still have a big problem with it because with writers, when I hire a writer, I'm really committed to them. And part of that, I see as a contract to help them get to a place where they should be, in a lot of cases, especially with younger writers. And so it'll be interesting. I think now the team is solid. Some writers have moved on and they weren't a good fit for one reason or another, but the team is pretty solid now. It will be interesting to see what will happen if I'm suddenly forced to change my opinion on somebody. If somebody does something so fucking unbelievably egregious, I can't imagine what it would be. Because I think I would struggle to fire any of my writing team right now. Even if they set fire to not safe for work headquarters.
I can easily fire mine.
Why don't we, I tell you what, I was going to say
I'm just kidding.
We'll do a deal where if either of us need to fire, we'll fire the other person's team. I'll fire anyone on your team in a heartbeat. And you'd probably fire all of mine.
I'm sorry, I have the balls to fire my own people.
I was just saying it would be.
I don't struggle with this issue like you. I'm not making that deal.
I'll do that deal right now. Yeah. No. Well, I hope none of my writers set fire to the building during the remotive dinner tonight. Otherwise, I'll be forced to confront that reality sooner than I thought. But yeah. So that was an unregret of the week. If I have a regret of the week, it's that I've just spent a lot of time on planning, and there's a bunch of stuff that my regret of the week is there are not enough hours in it. I've had such a fucking crazy week of trying to, and the regret is that my coordination is bad in terms of fitting everything in. I keep shuttling from one. I've arranged meetings all over the fucking week, and I cannot just sit down and get one thing done.
I had a ton of meetings the last 2 weeks because I was out of town for a long time, and I'm going to be out of town again for a long time, and it's like, it's frustrating.
Anyway, what's your regret of the week?
So I'll do my regret of the week, because if I don't go soon, it's rapidly going to become, I didn't get to see Eli before going to bed, before I left town for 2 weeks.
Okay.
I'm like still behind getting the updated budget forecast to the board.
Yeah.
And I'm like 3 weeks behind on it now.
I mean, I don't have a response to that.
So, and the reason I'm behind is because over the holidays, I let the staff kind of work half-time, and then I edited about 10 to 12 stories a day along with Nathan, and I wrote about 3 to 4 a day, so like I kind of carried it, and so I spent most of my time doing like heavy editorial stuff, and then I've been kind of digging out since, and then we're a startup, so everything sort of changes in real time, so it's hard to do a forecast.
Yeah.
So we keep tweaking it, and anyway, but that's the shitty thing I've fallen down on this week.
That's okay. You've got your flight to New York. You can catch up with all that stuff on. Is Eli coming to New York?
No.
Hence you saying you won't see him for 2 weeks. I remember now.
He's not coming to Vegas with me tomorrow either.
Is he coming at all? Is he coming with Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeff and Megan and Eli are coming, I think, Monday.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll see you tomorrow.
All right. I'll see you tomorrow.
And join us next week on Why Isn't This News?